Hello, 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 my wide open-minded friends. Welcome to the WOW podcast. I'm your host, Katie Cook, and this is the Halloween edition. I put a lot into this one. I'm hoping you're really going to like it. I've been looking forward to this one so very much. I'm calling it Ghost Stories with Friends because that's exactly what it is. I have two of my oldest friends on this episode, and we're telling some spooky stories, a couple uplifting ones. I even share some of my own personal ghost encounters, so I hope you'll get a kick out of that. But first, here's something you might get a kick out of. A pretty silly little story coming to us. I'm going to call this segment Poltergeist. This is from Hudson Valley News 12. Wayne Township Police say that a man wearing a Casper the Ghost style bedsheet with holes cut out robbed the Ramada Inn on Route 46. Police say the 59-year-old Joseph Elder of Wayne entered the main lobby of the hotel through a locked area of the former Tilted Kilt restaurant attached to the hotel. Police say that Elder jumped over the hotel desk counter, grabbed a cash drawer full of money, and ran from the area. An investigation revealed that Elder was a guest staying at the hotel. He was arrested and charged with burglary and theft. Okay, help me figure this one out. There's security cameras everywhere now, right? Especially in hotels. Do you think he actually thought that security would see the footage and think that they had a haunted hotel? Like Casper the Greedy Ghost? Could he be that stupid? Kind of thinking maybe he was. But thank you, Joseph, for the good laugh. We always appreciate that around here. But no laughing matter on this show. We have serious ghost stories to tell you and no men in sheets that I'm aware of. Although we do have a really interesting pillow story, and that comes to us from our first guest, my friend Alan Johnstone. Very old friend, I've known him forever, a great drummer here in Nashville. We've shared a lot of great music over the years, hung out so many times, but we've never swapped ghost stories. And I didn't even know that he had any good ghost stories until I started this podcast. And then he, like many other people, kind of showed up and said, hey, I've got some great stories for you. And that's part of what's so fun about this is I'm getting to know a whole new side of people that I've known for years. Everybody's got a story. And I share some of my ghost stories with him as well. And after Alan is my dear friend, Lauren Braddock, another old Nashville friend and a fine songwriter. In fact, we're going to feature one of her new songs, Witch Hairs, at the very end of this episode because it's a perfect fit for this episode, as you'll see. Lauren also happens to be the daughter, speaking of music, of famed songwriter Bobby Braddock. And they shared a terrifying night years ago in Florida. It's a very spooky story. I enjoyed hearing it. Hopefully you will too. So without further ado, enjoy Ghost Stories with Friends. Hi, Alan.
Hey, Katie.
So this is fun. I've known you, without wanting to make us sound too old, I've known you over 30 years.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. We were children, little children when we met. But you and I have never really had a talk about the paranormal.
It's true.
So I was pretty tickled when you reached out and said, I've got some stories for you.
I do.
And it sounds to me like it's not just one or two, that it kind of goes back to childhood. So
Yeah.
maybe, and I've got a few ghost stories too. And I thought it might be kind of fun if we just, have a casual chat and swap ghost stories. Like pretend this is a campfire.
Absolutely.
And it's like Halloween night.
Sounds good.
Okay. So can you remember back to like your very first paranormal experience?
Yeah, I can remember it vividly. I don't remember how old I was, but I'm guessing I was probably maybe 6 years old, something like that. And maybe a little younger, 5 or 6. And I'd gone to bed just like I ordinarily would. And I remember having just a pretty intense sensation that something was going on, like that there was something else inhabiting the room, and just a really kind of sense of vulnerability.
Did the room get colder?
I don't remember really temperature. Mostly I just remember an intensity, like just a feeling that I needed to really pull my covers up and thinking, this is not real. This is my imagination. And then I remember it getting really, really intense. And at kind of that peak of intensity, I felt something. And it was just a little tug on my pillow. It was under my
So
head.
it was right up next to you.
Yeah. And so, and then another tug. And then, of course, at this point, heart's racing, white knuckles gripping onto my covers.
Wanting to scream, but probably can't.
Yeah, just kind of, yeah. I think just like if you were in a car accident or anything like that, your body kind of goes into shock. I felt like I was in that sort of state, And then over time, my pillow was pulled from under my head. And then I remember watching it was really dark. All the lights were off. I remember kind of watching in the abyss as my pillow drifted away into nothingness. And
You watched it float.
well, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And you couldn't see who was carrying the pillow?
That's right.
Okay, so your pillow seems to be floating by this invisible person carrying it. Could you smell anything?
No.
Okay.
There was nothing like that.
And did you hear anything?
Not really.
What the heck did you do? So your head hits the bed.
Right.
There's no pillow anymore.
Well, so I laid there, frozen for a while. And then over time, I just fell asleep. And then when I woke up the next morning, I just thought, well, that was just a dream, right? It just was a dream because you're told from an early age, ghosts aren't real. And
Yeah.
so you believe that. And so, so I thought, well, that was just a dream with the exception of the fact that my pillow was gone. And so I remember asking my mom, have you seen my pillow? And she's like, well, it must be around here somewhere and under the bed, and kind of looking around, and it never reappeared.
Were you in trouble for losing the pillow?
No, I don't think so. I think it was just a mystery.
It is weird how we tell children, ghosts aren't real. I guess we do it because we just don't want them to be afraid, but maybe we're doing people a disservice because we're starting to numb their ability to see beyond
Yeah.
this usual 3D world.
It's interesting too when you pair it with religion, just because in that aspect we're told, well, Holy Ghost, spirits rising from the dead and these
Right.
things.
But ghosts aren't real.
There's a paradox there, right?
I know, that's completely bizarre to me. So I have a ghost story from when I was a teenager, and I knew you at the time, and it involves somebody that
really?
we both know, a guy named Thomas. I won't say his last name
Yeah,
because I don't know if
I know exactly
Thomas
who
would
you're talking
approve.
about.
But I don't know if you ever went to his house out in Franklin.
I haven't, but I think I've heard tale about things that
mean,
went on in this place.
Bump in the night. It is crazy spooky. This property was like a little tiny little home on just, I don't know how many hundreds of acres. It is now a huge subdivision. I'll not say the name, but there's somebody living in that subdivision with a serious spook in their house, even though the house is new. I'm just saying. But he lived in this tiny little farmhouse, and I'd always heard, just like you did, that it was super haunted. And I was kind of scared to go out there, but he was like my best friend at the time in high school, so I ended up going out there quite a lot. And one day we were in his house, old rickety wooden floorboards. We were the only people home, and I had my back to the kitchen. So I was standing in the doorway with my back to the kitchen, facing in the living room, and he was in the living room. And all of a sudden behind me, I hear I'm guessing like a 300-pound man in big boots, just clomp, clomp, clomp. I could hear the boots on the floor walking in the kitchen behind me. I didn't spin around because I just knew it was his dad had just come home, and so I kind of casually turn around to say hi to his dad. There's nobody there.
No.
We're not talking about a little creak in the floorboards. We're talking about heavy boots, a man stomping across the kitchen floor. And I turned around and I looked at Thomas, and he was like, oh, yeah, you heard it. He's like, welcome to my house. Daily. I just don't even respond to it anymore. And I was just like, what? I'd had a few weird things as a kid, but that was the first time that I could say 100% with a witness right there, like, I've just had an encounter with a ghost.
Yeah.
It scared the crap out of me, but then I couldn't wait to come back to his house and see if anything more happened. like something sparked in me, like, this is real.
Did it? Like, did you go back and have other occurrences?
I didn't really have any more occurrences at his house, unfortunately, and I ended up hanging out there all the time and waiting for that, waiting to see like a mirror fly off the wall or something, which never happened at his house again. But we have another old mutual friend that claims she was driving up his driveway late one night and saw a little girl in a white dress run across the driveway.
It's terrifying.
Oh my God. I don't think I could handle that. All right, tell me another one.
Okay, here's one that's similar to the one that you just told, actually. And this was, so we lived in a house that was built in 1908. We being my wife Christy and I, and it was on Lishy Avenue. I don't know if you ever came to anything at that house. There was a family plot that we kind of discovered that was attached to the side of the house,
Like a cemetery.
like a little cemetery. It was by far the creepiest house I've ever set foot in. But I had one, and we lived in the downstairs, and our friend Graham lived in the upstairs. And I remember being home one night, and it was one of those places where when you're by yourself, it was just creepy, right? And so one night I come home, and I'm kind of milling around making food or whatever, and I hear, Graham upstairs, the similar type thing, clomp, 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 doors opening, closing, all that kind of thing. And so it kind of put me at ease a little bit, knowing that he was there. And so maybe 20 minutes, a half an hour pass, and then I see headlights pulling up in our driveway. And so I look out the back window. It's Graham. So he had not been there the entire time, and I stuck my head out. I was like, "Did you go to the store and come back?" He's like, "No, I'm just now getting home." So
Oh my God!
it was one of those kind
now,
of
did he have any
situations.
activity? Did he ever report
He's the one who
anything?
told us that he said there's some stuff that goes on in this
It's
house.
like, get ready.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of stuff that goes on in houses, do you remember a place in Nashville called the White Roach?
Oh, of course.
Did
Yeah.
you ever live there?
No, I did not.
Okay,
live
I'm
there.
surprised you didn't, because I feel like we all were there at some point
I lived
or
down
another.
the street. I just didn't
Yeah,
live there.
so there was this, I think now sadly it's been torn down. I think there's like a Jiffy Lube there now or something. It's across from Centennial Park and almost downtown
Progress.
Nashville. Yeah. And it was like the rock and roll apartment block, right? What do you think? Maybe 15 or 20 apartments in there, something like that.
Maybe. I went to many a party in that place.
Many a party. Not that we partied. Don't party, kids. But yeah, many a party in that place. In fact, I think we even, a few times, bands would set up on the patio and we'd have rock parties. It was great. And, kind of low rent, so you get three or four people living in an apartment together. And we had a mutual friend, Teresa, that had an apartment there, and I was visiting her one day. And I was sitting, I guess, in one of the bedrooms looking out into the hallway. The door was open, and all of a sudden I see, I guess you'd call it a shadow figure, just walking down the hall. I mean, I could see the fingers, just like a normal walking person, the arm and the fingers and everything. I couldn't tell you what the person was wearing. I feel like it was male, but it was literally like if you peeled your shadow up off the ground and just stood it up and walked it down the hallway. And I was like, oh my God, did anyone see that? And she was like, yeah, was it going this way towards that room? I was like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, we see that all the time. And I was like, and you just live with that? Like, you're okay with it? But it seemed to be like a residual haunt.
I was going to say like an imprint almost,
yes, it
right?
didn't do anything. It's almost like if the walls could absorb an event and just replay it somehow. It just did that motion all the time, but I don't think it really messed with anybody. But I was like, I don't know if I could fall asleep in this apartment knowing that shadow could just walk into my room. It was pretty scary.
Wow, what do you think about that as far as things being imprinted or certain places retaining energy?
Well, they say that can happen, and that is what they call that kind of residual haunt thing, that it's not an intelligent haunting. It can't interact with you, and maybe it doesn't even know it's there, and maybe it's not even really there anymore. Maybe whatever soul it was attached to has moved on, but somehow there's maybe some energy got released in that moment, and it's literally getting replayed like a movie. Like, maybe the atmosphere can just absorb it and replay it. I don't know how, and I know that sounds crazy. But I
I think, I don't know, perception of crazy. You know what I mean? It's like maybe the beginning of this conversation could be perceived that way, but
it's all relative.
Right.
All right, you go again.
Well, so after my kids were born, it seems like when they were young, there were still some things going on, but I feel like after there was so much kind of human activity that and actually maybe our minds were on other things, that they stopped occurring so much. But I do remember one thing that relates all the way back to the first story, which was my son having a nightmare and me going up and saying, you okay? And he's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I'm okay, but have you seen my pillow? Which was kind of terrifying.
No, he didn't.
It's true. We found his pillow was not gone. It was there, but It was just,
What
it was
in
a
the
weird.
world? Do you have like a ghost that likes to
know.
steal pillows
It
that's
was
following you
creepy.
around?
I don't know.
Do you have
The
some weird pillow
ghost.
karma?
Yeah, I must.
Oh my! Did you tell him the story of when you were a
He
kid?
knows it now. Yeah.
Did it freak him out?
No, no.
He thinks
I
you're
don't think so.
crazy.
He probably does.
He's
Yeah.
just like, whatever, Dad.
Yeah, it's fine.
Do you think a ghost can follow a person?
It's weird for me. It's a weird paradoxical space for me because I'm such a realist, such a a secular person, a skeptic, if you will. And so this kind of resides in another domain. But I think just because of my experiences, I feel like a building can store energy, or a person can have things attached, entities, I guess.
And they can be good or bad. Right. I mean, I definitely have met some people that stay in such a negative space that every single place they live, they claim they're seeing shadow figures and hearing stuff, and they always feel cold spots. And I'm like, yeah, you're like a walking vortex,
Yeah, like a conduit.
Yeah, exactly. You just open that portal at some point and you have to shut it down. I do think you can protect yourself from the negative stuff. And if you stay in a negative space of fear, there is something that can kind of come and attach itself to you. I think we all have to be really conscious of that. I had I ended up being fine with it, but at the moment it happened, felt very negative. When I lived in London right after high school, my brother lived in an old Victorian house, 3-story house in a part of town called Islington, really cool, trendy, happening part of town. I loved it. I loved living there. But I hated that top floor. It was really, really spooky. And anyone who stayed up there had some kind of activity. And I tried to protect myself. I was like, it's never gonna come get me, And I did okay for a while, but there was one night I came home from the pub, not even drunk, because frankly I didn't have enough money to drink a lot back then. So I probably had like 2 pints, and went to bed.
I feel like you're vulnerable in that state anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was laying on my side, so my back was to the door, and I feel this thump on the back of my thigh, like somebody had thrown a boot at me. And I don't know if you remember, I used to wear combat boots like all the time.
Yeah,
it could be
totally
a pretty
remember that,
spring
yeah.
dress, and I'd still have my combat boots on. I thought I was going to flip over and see my brother standing there with like the other boot in his hand, like, come on, get up, let's party or whatever. Nothing. My boots are in the corner. Nobody's there. This thing smacked me. And I went, that weird feeling where you're so scared, you don't know if you're hot or you're cold. You don't know if you're like a sweaty mess or you're dry. I mean, it's like all your nerve endings are just like, what do we do with this? And I was absolutely frozen for a moment, and my heart was racing. And then the weirdest thing happened. I felt
You
like...
took your pillow.
What's that? No, the pillow didn't go flying. No, but the weirdest thing happened. This weird calm came over me. The room went so still and quiet, and I can't tell you why, but I knew whatever it was done, and it was gone. It's almost like it came in, said, you're in my space, I've let you know, now I got other stuff to do. I suddenly went really calm right afterwards, and I actually fell back asleep. And if you had told me earlier that day, later on tonight while you're trying to sleep, a ghost is going to hit you, I mean, I would have lost my mind. I would never have stepped foot back in that house. And I ended up staying there, for months more. I knew it. I knew it had made its point, and that it was going to leave me alone. And I said out loud, I was like, thank you. I'm aware this is your space and I'm in it. Let's coexist. Let's be cool. And it didn't bother me again after that. It bothered the hell out of my brother. He got pushed out of bed. He had sheets yanked around and a pillow floated away. No, I'm kidding.
Well, maybe that explains my ability to go to sleep when I was a kid, just because I didn't have the capacity to understand that something was present and then not present.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I knew this thing was done, and I don't know why I knew that. I think it somehow just put that in my head. So Halloween is coming up. Any big plans?
Yeah, I'm consumed by it, like starting now. Something else that we were talking about earlier, I feel like maybe because of this inclination, that's out of my control somewhat, that I'm drawn to those things, especially when the leaves start changing and things start dying.
And the spiders come out.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all about it.
Yeah, I don't like anything that gets too dark. I don't like to put like big bloody mannequins in the yard and stuff. But I like to indulge in the spooky a little bit. I like to have the spooky music on
There's
in
a
the
difference
house.
in gore and spooky.
Yeah, I don't like gratuitous violence. Just wears me out. But we definitely put some good ghost stories on, and we'll be
Yes.
running Ghostbusters kind of nonstop for the next couple of weeks. And but I can watch anything during the day. Once it's nighttime, it's Muppet Movie.
I'm with you. This was really fun. Thank you very much for asking me to do this or having me do this. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Katie.
Thank you for inviting me into your beautiful home.
It's so fun being here with you.
I know, we're going to tell ghost stories.
I love ghost stories. It's one of my favorite things to do is tell ghost
So you probably like this time of year. Halloween's a
do.
good time.
Nice and creepy. And yes.
Do you actually indulge in horror movies?
Life can be stressful enough. So,
Amen.
yeah. So I'm kind of, I used to love them, but now I'm kind of like, give me, I love Lucy, and I don't know.
Yeah. No, I can't do the scary movies.
No, I like them too, though. But
Well, like you said, life can be stressful enough, right? And sounds like life has been spooky enough for you a time or two. Do you remember how old you were the first time you were aware of a presence, a ghost?
The first thing that comes to mind was when I was 14 years old. And I went to visit a friend named Sandy in Atlanta. And we were in her basement. We decided to sleep downstairs. And just because it's a fun thing to do, to sleep next to the pinball machines and all that stuff.
Heck yeah.
And so we were almost asleep. And we woke up. I woke up in that kind of half sleep. And I looked up and I saw this. I thought it was Sandy standing over me with one of those really realistic rubber masks that looked like an old woman, like with the wrinkles and the long gray hair. And I look up and I'm like, Sandy, stop, cut it out. Because I thought she was trying to scare me for some odd reason, And my hand went through whatever it was. And I realized that she was right next to me in the bed.
Sandy was next to you.
Sandy was asleep next to me, and this thing that looked like a really scary old lady mask was right in front of me. And I kind of closed my eyes, hit at it, was not solid, and, did one of these again, and grabbing Sandy, who's sound asleep, and as I see it drift into the wall.
Okay. Okay, those masks are terrifying.
Right?
I'm trying to picture seeing something like that in real life and then realizing that it's not a mask. So could you tell, was there any skin tone? Was it just gray?
Gray. It was very gray.
Okay.
And the hair was gray and long and, and just wrinkles everywhere.
Did she look angry?
She just looked old, I guess. and not really angry, but scary.
Looking at you, like you
Like
were making
looking at me.
eye
It was
contact
like,
with this.
ooh, right next to my face.
Okay, when
Kind
you
of what are you doing here?
right, like you were in her space. When you put the hand through what you thought was going to be a solid mask, did it feel cold? Like, was there any sensation?
It just felt maybe a little cold, but it just felt like crazy because it wasn't solid. I'm seeing solid and my hand is going through.
Did your heart start racing immediately?
Yes. And I'm like, I grab my friend, I see the entity go through the wall. And then I find out later when I'm drilling my friend that we were sleeping on our grandmother's bed and her grandmother had recently died.
Could you tell it was wearing anything? You said you watched the entity float away. Was it just like a mist, or could you make out any details?
Well, it just kind of started fading, as it went to the wall.
You said it went through the wall?
Yes.
Could you see any kind of doorway or anything?
No, I just saw it drift, and then dissipate into the wall.
Through the wall. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. What went through your mind when you reached over and you hit your friend as solid matter?
Oh, crap. It's not her. What is it? And then when I shut my eyes and reopened them, and it was still there. It's like I'm not. I must be dreaming, is the thought, right? And then I shut them, opened them up, and it was still there.
Probably don't look at those masks the same way anymore.
No, I don't. I don't.
That's not your only ghost story, though, is
No,
it?
it's not.
Tell me another.
That same trip, my dad picked me up, because we're from Nashville. He picked me up in Atlanta to drive me down to Central Florida, where he's from. Small town, very rural, orange groves, swamps, alligators.
Sounds spooky enough.
Spooky enough. And we're rolling in about midnight, about to go to my grandmother's house, and very, very small town, very quiet. And he was telling me this very unfortunate, sad story about a friend of his, a young man whose brother, unfortunately, lost it. And when a woman broke up with him, and it was a murder-suicide, he had brought her to the family home and shot his brother. She ran out into the woods, shot her, shot himself. And my dad's telling me this really, really sad story as we pull in, and we're pulling in, and he's like, over there by the lake, right about there is where he shot her and then shot himself. And we're at a standstill, and right at that moment, we hear a blood-curdling scream, like a, just, but 10 times that and longer and louder. And I did one of these in my seat. My dad went down on the gas, and we hauled butt out of there,
You didn't see anything?
Didn't see anything except my own,
Life flash before your eyes?
Exactly. It was horrifying.
What did your dad think?
Well, at the moment, I think he was pretty freaked out since he went 100 miles an hour out of there. But later on, he's like, well, maybe it could have been like a panther, a Florida panther or something. But, we'd been around Florida a lot, and I had never heard one before, especially with the timing like that.
Yeah, I think he was trying to make you feel better.
Maybe so.
It was so freaking scary. Okay. Do you have any more?
I had a friend that passed away and in Los Angeles, and I was there at the time, and the family asked me to go see where he might prefer being buried, in a mausoleum or up on the Hollywood Hills. And I was thinking, well, Marilyn Monroe was in like a mausoleum. He might think that was really cool, And so I went there thinking that, but got up the hill and saw the mausoleum. I was like, I don't know, I was like, okay. Then they drove up the hill some more, and there were these beautiful hills, and they're like, well, that's the spot right there that it would be. And I saw him plain as day, laying on the ground with his leg over, like crossed, and just kind of playing with his eyebrow like I'd seen him do a bunch of times. And I was like, that's it. That's the spot.
When you say you saw him, is it like in your mind's eye, like you can picture him there, or is it like it was physically
it was
there?
Solid. I felt like, not solid, but but I felt like I saw it. It was just like, not like, oh, I could picture him there, like you say. No, I saw him there. I saw him.
And his parents were standing right there with you.
Yeah.
Did you keep this to yourself?
I kind of did. I think I told his brother later, but I just said, this is it,
He was telling you, this is where I want to be.
Right. And it was a peaceful thing. It was a peaceful thing.
Did that feel frightening to you, or was it comforting?
Both. It was really both, It's like, yeah, I don't mean to get too deep or heavy or whatever with
you
this.
You can't get too deep for me.
But when it's somebody who and then that has passed, I almost in a way didn't want to be alone for a while. I was pretty young too, but because you're like, somebody that's that close to me is like on the other side, and they're going to want to talk to me, and that kind of freaked me out a little bit.
Yeah.
It really kind of did.
And it's kind of, you may feel a lot of responsibility. Maybe you are now his connection to this world.
Right. But and on the other side of that, it was comforting to know, and it was his vibe, the body language was very relaxed, little pensive, little, but definitely relaxed. And like peaceful. And so that was the message that really was conveyed to me, so
That you could feel okay about him being on the other side.
yeah, and being specifically in that spot too, like, yeah, this is cool, this is where I want to be.
Do you have any idea if he could see you? Was there any interaction?
He knew that would freak me out too much, I don't know, but no, I don't think he wasn't looking at me.
There
He
was no wave, or you didn't hear anything.
Mm-mm.
But he told you, this is where I want to be. And you were able to see that and get that across to his parents.
Mm-hmm.
So you helped find his final resting place, although he's probably not really hanging out there.
Right.
But I always wonder that with grave sites, because most people say if they go to the grave site to visit that person, they feel that presence. And yet I don't like to think that they are stuck anywhere physically.
Okay, now this is really out there, but our mutual friend Jessica, her stepdad was a what's the word?
Is shaman the word?
Shaman. Thank you. He told me that he went and traveled and saw this person on my behalf. He did that, and he was hanging out at it sounded like rock and roll heaven to me. He was like, yeah.
So he went and found him for you to give
Yes.
you more confirmation that he's okay.
Yeah.
Has he come to you anymore, this friend?
No, he's too busy partying and like on the other side.
He's fine.
He's
He's
good.
doing good. I wonder what would happen if you ever went back to that spot.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I should do that.
Well, maybe, but maybe if you want to reach out, you can do it some other way, astrally.
Yes.
In a shaman state. I don't know.
That's right.
Well, that's pretty
No,
powerful.
I've had other dreams and stuff, And then I feel like we've talked about this too off camera, but dreams often feel like a channel, like an open channel. In fact, Edgar Casey, are you familiar with him?
Oh, yeah.
Leaping Prophet, said that when you have an encounter with someone that has passed in your dreams, it is like a face-to-face. It is usually a real like spiritual encounter.
I believe that. I really do. I visit with people that have passed on in my dreams, and it never feels quite like my other dreams. There's so many dreams that you wake up and you forget them by the time you've poured coffee. They're already out of your
that's
mind.
silly.
And these dreams are different. You spend the whole day going, I really feel like I hung out with that person. Like I don't have to miss them as bad, that I got to spend time with them. And I have those dreams all the time. And I do think they're really significant.
And that's how I describe it too. It's like I cannot get the dream off my mind, and I really feel like it was a visitation with that person.
Yeah. And I'm often floating when I'm with the person that has passed away in my dream.
That has happened to me.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. That makes me wonder if there is that extra layer of, astral projection like Edgar Casey would do.
Yes. Well, so that makes me think of this other thing that happened.
Okay.
So when I was younger, I'm not going to say my exact age because that would give it away, but around the time John Lennon died, I was very, very, very young. And I felt this real, sense of connection to him. And I actually had a dream about him. And I was standing outside of the Dakota where he lived. And
In your dream?
In my dream. And I was still living in Nashville. And I was talking to him. He was hanging outside of the Dakota. I'm talking to him. We're just, shooting the breeze. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. What does Yoko think about that? And in the dream, I'm like, well, wait, you're dead. And he is like, he thought that was the funniest thing. And he just laughing. And I'm like, well, what is it like to be dead? And he opened up this bottle of like a magical perfume. And he is like, well, smell this. You can do the accent better than I can since you lived in England, I'm sure. And he like let me smell the perfume, and we went flying. And so, and it was just this crazy experience. I just felt really connected to him for a long, long time. So flash forward, and I moved to New York to study acting a few years later. And that's where I went to college. And I lived above the China Club. Do you remember the China Club?
yes.
It was like the 80s,
Wild.
Oh, yeah. And me and my other teenage friends, we lived upstairs, and we'd just kind of walk right past the roped off thing. And because they knew us, then we'd just go right in. And I had developed a crush on Julian Lennon. And he hung out there all the time, but there were like these roped off areas, and he and Bowie and Cher and Sylvester Stallone. This was the 80s, folks. So they would all be in the roped off section, and me and my friends would just be stupid on the dance floor, whatever.
Trying to get their attention.
Yeah, like, hey, Julian over here, And so we were just goofy. And but one night, a friend of mine, who I think he played, I don't know, drums for him or something, I don't know. But he's like, oh, I think, you can come up to our table tonight. You and your friend, if you want to come sit at our table, Julian's here and you can sit with us. I'm like, oh, great. And so we sat there, and Julian had a date, and it was just goofy. We didn't even talk at all. Not even once, not even an introduction, and it's kind of loud in those places. So anyway, so I got up and went to the bar and got a Sex on the Beach.
As you do in the
As
80s.
you do in the 80s. And this is, I don't even want to say anything about timelines, but it was legal to drink at 19 at the time. So, but anyway, so I got my Sex on the Beach, and I'm just kind of, walking back to the table, and I look down, and there is this gorgeous white plume, this just gorgeous white feather laying there on the ground. And this is in a busy New York nightclub. Disco, it was odd. So I'm like, oh, wow, I'm just 19. I'm just whatever. So I'm like, pick it up. I'm like, wow. And I take it back to the table. And then Julian and his date are saying goodbye to everybody. And I have this overwhelming urge to tickle him with the feather. And before I knew what I was doing, I was like, loop.
Like on his face.
Oh, like up in his face. Like, just like.
I'm surprised you didn't get kicked out.
I know. And then he was like, the way he looked at me, I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? Because he was shock. It was pure shock. It wasn't even just like, you annoying teenager. He was like, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I just do? And so I start kind of tickling everybody and just, and just, anyway, it was fine.
I'm just the girl who tickles people.
I'm just the girl with the
Don't
feather.
kick me out.
Yeah. And so he left. I mean, they were leaving anyway.
He definitely left at this point.
It was a coincidence that he left. So, but anyway, so they left, and I had a boyfriend right after that. Like, I just had started getting involved with this guy that worked at the power station recording studio, and I told him the story, and he's like, wait a minute. He goes, had you ever heard the story about the white feather? I said, what? And he goes, did you read the Rolling Stone interview that Julian did right after his dad died? I'm like, no, because this was like, I was barely out of diapers. So, but I didn't happen to, because I was just kind of really getting into the whole thing at that time. And he's like, oh my God, you've got to hear this. And basically what had happened was Julian said that his father had told him, John Lennon, his father had told him, if I die and I can communicate from the other side, I will drift a white feather across the room. And Julian's like, I think he said something to the effect of, I used to look for that feather, but now I feel like if you look too close, you're never going to see it. And I'm like, oh my God. Couldn't believe that, what are the odds that the one night I got to sit in that,
That one night you get to sit in that section and this pristine white feather
happens
is at
to be
your
on
feet,
the floor.
and then you have the audacity
to put it literally under his nose. Right? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's beyond crazy.
Yeah.
What did you think when you actually found this out?
I was freaked out. And also, I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. I thought it was pretty cool too.
Like maybe John Lennon actually really connected with
Yes, like maybe I was a vessel for his communication.
you. Never
But
know.
you never know. And I was certainly open enough to them, because I just felt connected, and I was just, a huge fan, like many of us are, but I don't know.
Well, and it's kind of chicken and egg. It's like, I wonder if you had that experience because you were so open
Right.
to John Lennon and loved him so much, or if we do something to our brains where we love someone so much that we like can create a scenario,
Right?
you know,
But
I don't know.
I didn't know about the feather.
You didn't know, so
I had
how
no
could you?
idea.
I mean, that's a weird thing to do. No offense, but
Right.
it's a really weird
It
thing to do.
is, even
is to
for
pick up a
me.
feather and rub it in a celebrity's face.
Right? What are the odds? And I do know, incidentally, that he feels like he saw his feather years later. And he has an organization now, too, called the White Feather Organization.
So definitely something that means something to him.
Right.
Big time. Wow, that's amazing. Can you imagine if John Lennon actually used you as a conduit, like
No.
to reach out to his son?
I know, it's crazy.
Wow. So do you feel like you are an antenna for this kind of stuff? Do you feel like you can turn it on and off? Like if you go looking for it, let's say you went on a ghost hunt or something, do you feel like you get more activity than anyone else? Or just is it totally random in your life?
It's pretty random. I think if I wanted to channel it, like if I got, if I focused on it, I bet I could probably make it happen, Like I think any of us could with psychic ability. I think we all have that capacity. I think some of us are just more open to it than others,
Yeah, and some people, I say this all the time, but I think if that door is even a little bit open, it can be open for all kinds of experiences.
Right.
Not just one specific thing. Let's talk about your song, Witch Hairs.
Okay.
Because I want that to play us out.
Yay.
Tell me how this song came about.
Well, a dear friend of mine, Dixie Gamble, who is a music business veteran turned Renaissance woman, asked me to be an early reader of her memoir, Witch Hairs, that just came out. It's on Working Title Farm is the publisher. And so I did, and I loved it. And she asked me to write a song for one of the chapters because her husband, John Jorgensen, who's amazing Grammy-winning musician, was producing a companion CD to go with it. And so I ended up just being so inspired. I didn't write about just one chapter. I just kind of wrote about the whole thing, the whole concept. And, and her book was a memoir and the title is Witch Hairs. So the witch hairs are like these little stories from your life, and they can be light, they can be dark, and it's life, And so I kind of used a little bit of that and a little bit of my life and a little bit of just witchiness too, because I think that's fun, and blended it all together.
I love it. Well, it's going to play us out. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you, darling.
Witch hairs don't care, light and dark every which way. I swear I dare to unleash them anyway. Each tale I tell, each one I pluck, tales of misfortune, tales of luck, makes me tougher who I am. I'll be blessed or I'll be damned. I am so misunderstood. I use my powers just for good. Unless you cross the one I love, push this wicked mother to shove. Witch hairs don't care, light and dark every which way. I swear I dare to unleash them anyway. So it's not your circus and it's not your monkeys, but I move with purpose up on the trapeze. Do I make you nervous when I do as I please? To be of service, I'll do right as I see, 'cause this is my circus and these are my monkeys. Witch hairs don't care, light and dark every which way. I swear I dare to unleash them anyway. on women come back around. Witches don't care.
That's Lauren Braddock with Witch Hairs. A big thanks to Lauren for joining me today, and also Alan Johnstone. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the WOW podcast. If you're enjoying it, I hope you will subscribe and help me spread the word and tell your friends all about it. And please join me next time when I'll be talking with the one and only Travis Walton from Fire in the Sky fame. Until then, this is Katie Cook reminding you to keep your eyes, heart, and mind wide open.